How's it going, guys? Jonathan Weinberger here. I am the authorized Unity instructor for the Ultimate Guide to Game Development with Unity. Tonight's live stream, I am with Joe Cassavaugh, the founder of Puzzles by Joe, and he has created a franchise around a specific game called Clutter. So, Joe, thank you for taking the time to be on the show. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Jonathan.
So
Good to be here.
Thank you. So for those who aren't aware, Clutter is a casual puzzle game, and we have some gameplay footage that we're going to play for you later in the stream. But what I want to start with is tell us about your original IP, Clutter.
Okay, I wrote a game for a company called iWin. I actually worked for them, but I was responsible for a game called Mahjong Quest. And it was back in 2005 when the casual market was booming. And when I say that, it's back when the time when they were first really discovering that women would play games if you gave them the right kind of games. And there were several distributors that became big during that time, half distributors, half publishers. Big Fish was one of them. I worked for iWin. We were another one. And after 5 years of working for them, the market tightened up quite a bit, and they stopped doing in-house production as much. And at the time, this genre of game called hidden object games came along, and since that was the largest market, I decided to write a game specifically targeted for that market without being a true hidden object game. And I wanted a game to be replayable. That was the point of my game. This was a replayable game that appealed to people who like hidden object games. That's how Clutter was born.
So you mentioned Big Fish. So one of the questions in the Discord was, why Big Fish?
Because that's
and what is Big Fish for those who don't know?
Okay, Big Fish Games is probably the biggest distributor of casual games. So we're talking back when Bejeweled, Mahjong games were big. There was a game called Zuma. Three-ball match was everywhere. And then it evolved to these hidden object games and light adventure. But it was these sites that basically, even AOL Games Channel, Yahoo's Games Channel,
right.
Microsoft had a thing called Oberon. They were just learning that women over 40 with some disposable incomes wanted to play games, if they were, again, the right types of games. And it's really the precursor to the games that struck big on Facebook and then led to Candy Crush, for instance. But this is back in 2005. And they just grew. I believe Big Fish Games started with a game called Morav's Mahjong, quite a few years earlier than that. And the nice thing about them is if you wrote a game that was long enough, which meant between 4 and 6 hours of gameplay, it had to run full screen, it had to run in Windows, I knew they would publish the game, right. Or they would have it on their site. And then I knew I'd get about 100,000 eyeballs, and if I got a good enough conversion rate, that I'd do okay. And that was the market I knew. I didn't have to do my own marketing, so that's the one I picked.
Gotcha. So when you were at iWin, is that also where you guys hosted your games?
Correct.
Okay, so that's just so if you're making a casual game, Big Fish is your largest market for casual games like Bejeweled or for match games like that.
Correct. And then after there was iWin, there was Game House, there was Wild Tangent, Shockwave, cool. And all of those still exist. I'm on all of those actually that I just mentioned. I have about 12 different distributors.
Very cool.
I'm on many more, and I'm on many more sites beyond that because some distributors have sort of multiple sites. Pogo, PopCap, also in the same ballpark.
Yeah, those are some massive companies.
Yep.
Very cool. So, okay, so Clutter is unique because you've made 7 of them. Your most recent one is called Clutter Infinity. There are 7 of them, which puts you as a franchise. So for those listening who aren't aware of the franchise effect, can you tell us a bit about it and how it works? And are you seeing your success because of that franchise effect?
Sure. In a nutshell, I took a man year to do the first Clutter game. And I thought that game would make less than 10 grand because it would just bomb, or it would make about 100,000. It proved me wrong and came right in the middle and made about 50,000 in the first, I think, 14, 15 months. If I'd never done another Clutter game, that game might have made 60,000. I tell people the stupidest thing I ever did was to take a year off and make that first Clutter game. However, the smartest thing I ever did was decide to do the second Clutter game. I figured I could do the second Clutter game in about a 6-man month period. I worked for a local company here in Atlanta, and it took me over a year. I was doing part-time for this other one to sort of hedge my bets. But a little over a year later, it went out, but it was really only 6-man months. And sure enough, it did about the same as the first game, but it also bumped additional sales to that first game. And then I knew I was doing 3, and then it really took off. And just to tell you, that first game that was dead in the water, where it was netting me about 50,000 after 15 months and might have made 60,000, that has made 170,000 now.
That's insane. And across your entire franchise, it's public knowledge that your franchise has generated over $2.5 million in sales.
Yeah, and that's a rough estimate because I get a percentage.
Right.
And some people, there's all access on some sites, which actually does me well. Because my game, people play for longer than 4 to 6 hours. There are people that have actually, I know this for a fact, they have played one of my Clutter games every day for 6 years.
That is amazing.
For at least an hour a day. They play Clutter like I play Free Cell.
That is amazing. So for those watching who aren't aware of what Clutter is and what this franchise is, we actually have some game footage that's about a minute long of Clutter. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for you guys, and I'll see you when it's done. All right, so that is Clutter Infinity. You can pick that up at puzzlesbyjoe.com. The link is on his profile, or just if you're watching this stream, it's right below his picture. So with Clutter, I have to know, and I'm sure everyone is wondering, is Clutter your passion? Like, was this your passion project?
Definitely not. Early on, again, I created Clutter specifically to target the hidden object market.
Right.
And when I came across the idea and first tested it out, I felt it was such a simple idea, but that it was naturally rich and deep enough for me to play with.
Right.
And I really only had I had 3 major variations and then 12 minor variations in that first game. And now I'm up to, I think, over 40. And most of them mix and match and stuff. But really, I used to joke that that I use Clutter to support my minigame habit, because making minigames is really my passion. And in fact, I shut off doing new minigames the last couple of years because nobody cares about them but me. And I've been basically milking the cash cow and trying to grow the business. I'm also 60. I'm going to retire in a couple of years, and all that means in a couple of years is I'm going to flip a switch and do things that are much more Joe-centric. Now, with that said, though, I have made the story elements of the game much more weird and Joe-centric. So that's been kind of fun. But that's we won't digress into that unless somebody brings it up later. So, okay, because it's another hour conversation.
That is awesome. So I want to go ahead and take a second here. We have some questions in Discord. If you're in the Discord chat, it means you're a student of the Ultimate Guide to Game Development with Unity. And what I'm going to do here, we have a question from a user named EMFPC. And what this question is what do you have in mind when trying to create a game as a solo developer? So I guess more so, as a solo developer, what challenges did you face to complete Clutter?
So Clutter's built on an engine, the original Clutter, and for the first, these 7 we're talking about, were built on an engine that I helped finalize back in 2005. Okay, so I'm old. Can you repeat the question again?
No worries. No worries. What challenges did you face as a solo developer making Clutter?
Really, the challenges is actually not going crazy, just working by myself. And I thank the Atlanta game dev community because of the 2 nights out a month I get doing that. That keeps me sane, if you believe it or not. Otherwise, I'm a bit of a code monkey, and I love working for myself. And there's 2 things I'm going to say. Number 1, I don't do design docs. I just keep lists of stuff and think about things till I have it locked in my mind, and then I go code.
Right. Common programmer way. And
this is the third of the 2. Whenever anybody told me no at iWin or whatever about what I could put or not put into a game, if I think of something I want to put in the game and I think to myself, oh wow, my old producer Jim would not let me do that, I know it's going in the game. And the more I feel that, the more I'm gonna prove them wrong. The first game got reviews that said, looks like a student project.
Nice.
And I don't listen to the haters. All I cared about really was trying to make enough money to keep doing this by myself.
Right, which is the ultimate goal.
Right, and that last point is this. I will tell everybody this from an indie standpoint. I still have good and bad days being an indie, okay? But my worst day working for myself is still slightly better than the best day I've ever had working for anybody else.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's truly amazing. And I'm sure a goal for a lot of people watching this and inside the indie community is they just want to do what they love full time, quit that corporate job, and just make games for a living. So it's pretty awesome that you get to actually live that dream.
Right, but my full dream is to really just do mini games and not care to make money, right? I mean, I'm not doing that. I'm actually, I do like being the business. I do like proving I can do this.
Right.
And that I've made more. I mean, this past year made 30% more than the year before. And I'm still trying to figure out how to grow my business. After 7, that next game is going to have no language, no story in it at all. It's all going to be icon based so that it can go all over the world. And that's my goal, is to get Clutter on tablets, PC, and everywhere. So
very cool. So I have questions related to Clutter in Unity later in the show.
Okay.
A question from Lucky Ducky came in. What is the process, or how long does a typical game of Clutter take to make? So how long did game 1 take you, and then how long did game 2 through 7 take?
Okay, so game 1 took a man-year. Game 2 took, calendar-wise, a little over a year, but it was truly right about a man 6 months. Okay?
Okay.
Because I worked 3 days a week for somebody else during most of Clutter 2. Clutter 3, I went from 640 to 480 to 1024, 768. So Clutter 3 took longer. It was actually a shorter quest. It was more a personal story that's weird, and another one for another time. But that one took the longest, I think a year and 4 months. And then I tried to shorten things. So I did a thing called Minigame Madness. It was still Clutter, but because the focus was on the minigames, it didn't sell as well. I then said, screw it, and I did Clutter 5, Welcome to Clutterville, which was even more Joe-centric and weird, and that one did the best.
Wow.
That just really kicked butt, and it was right before the last, shrinkage of the market again.
Right.
Clutter 5 did so well, I hired 2 people for Clutter 6, and Clutter 5 was like, I think, a 9-month sprint. And again, cool. I put a lot in the game, so it's
right.
It's sometimes it's just trying to shut them down and stuff, and sometimes it'll last, the 80-20 rule. Anyways, Clutter 5 did so well, I brought on 2 people to write the story for Clutter 6, and that was an interesting experience, and it actually really energized me to do take some chances and risks and do it. It energized me on so many levels. However, it did not do as well as 5, and it cost me, $12,000 to have them help me.
Right.
So for 7, I went to even more Joe-centric, including the art and everything. And I threw everything in the kitchen sink at that, and that has done slightly better than 6.
Very cool.
So there's something about the gorgeous art that 6 was that either set the wrong expectations or turned some people off, because I didn't do this. Even though it was related to Clutter, and again, some other time we could do a whole thing on just the stories of Clutter that are hysterical, I think. But it turned off some of my customers. The third that care about the story, about half of those were not happy I farmed out the story to the 2 girls that did the story for Clutter 6. So.
Gotcha. So that's super interesting. So you wanted to become an indie game developer, and you sacrificed working on your own passion projects to chase an industry or a niche that you saw there was a void in. How has that affected you in terms of making your own games? Like, do you enjoy working on the next Clutter, or are you hoping eventually that Clutter is going to generate enough income on its own that it can fund your passion projects?
Okay, so I'm 60.
Right.
At some point, I'm going to flip a switch and say I'm really retired. And one of the nice things about Clutter in the franchise, if I got hit by a truck, knock on wood, today, my games would still bring in another 150 to 200,000 over the next 3 years, in the soft income coming in. I did not. My passion was for creating games. So even that first game had 5 or 6 really interesting mini games, and I really did enjoy those. And then I just realized after Minigame Madness that very few people cared about them the way I did, that they wanted Clutter. So with 5, I came up with more variations of Clutter, and then with 6, with the 2 girls that really energized, I did a head-to-head because the story demanded it. And that really freed me up to start thinking more out of the box with Clutter even, and push myself further. And I had fun doing it again. And I really was kind of becoming a grind a little bit with 5. But like I said, 5 did so well that 6 became less of a grind, and 7 was a lot of fun. And I will say one thing on the story. 7 was the stories became more meta as the series progressed. So the game that did best, Clutterville, Welcome to Clutterville, the story was actually, why the heck did I do a Clutter 5 and will there be a Clutter 6? That was the story. Clutter 7, I decided had to go one more step meta, and I actually told the story of my life as 1 year increments, little snippets that just basically explained how I became the guy to create the Clutter games.
That is incredible.
And some of my customers love that. A lot of them just skip the stories anyways, but the ones that are they loved all those snippets and other things. So, anyways,
very cool. So it looks like there's some shredding happening in our stream here. Just trying to adjust some settings here. Sorry about that, guys. That's honestly incredible. My gosh. So I'm sure that's a wake-up call for a lot of people that sometimes, in order to work on your passion projects, you have to go where the money is first to get the time and availability to work on your own projects.
Right. In fact, for kids growing up, one of my advice used to be make a game.
Right.
And my advice now is actually find somebody else to pay you while you perfect your craft.
Right. Right. Exactly. So oh, go ahead.
No, go. I'm done.
Okay. So Esther from YouTube just asked an excellent question. How do you approach the asset areas? Like, did you make your assets? And then this also gets into a question is, what is your skill set? You mentioned you're a code monkey, so I imagine you don't do any art.
No, I do some interface
okay, you
art.
Do some. Okay.
So my game is all photorealistic objects, which is why some people think it looks like a student project. And the reason I do that is because I can't afford, real art.
Right.
And I wanted to keep my costs down. And I got lucky. There's this thing called Hemera Photo Object Set that had 25,000 objects that I got, 20 years ago. And it was before people cared about the digital rights. So nothing in the book said I couldn't do it. And I wrote to the company that was already bought out by another company and got in an email saying, yep, you can do it. So all my objects weren't there. For my first game, I hired one guy to do some stuff. He was horrible on so many levels, but he taught me how to bevel.
Okay, very cool.
And if you're a programmer, bevel is like, I think it's Aristotle and the lever. Give me a lever and a place to stand and I can move the world. And if you learn how to bevel, hey, you can write an interface.
That's awesome.
So and then I actually not too bad, although I still use Paint Shop Pro basically. And I enjoy doing some things. Other things I farm out still, but some things I do, and I live with good enough, right? Perfect is the enemy of the good. And when you're an indie, good enough is what you care.
That's awesome. Yeah, right. Just keep doing what you love. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So a question from Feedlipe. How much time did you learn before you started making games? So I guess you worked for iWin and was working on Mahjong. So I guess the question really is how long were you programming before you took the journey on your own?
Okay. So I believe I've spent my entire career. I don't think I've ever been hired for a job I'm qualified for. I was a pure math major in college, took one computing course when it was with Key Punch, and I didn't want to do it because it was 3 days to find out you missed a semicolon. And
nice.
I took 2 years off after getting a math degree from Rensselaer from RPI, which is the Georgia Tech of the North for people who don't know it. Anyways, after 2 years, I got a job, answered an ad, took an aptitude test, and after one computer course, I started as a computer programmer for Albany Savings Bank. And in the next 3 years, I worked for a savings bank, a grocery store chain, and a restaurant chain. And then I got lucky and made it out to Silicon Valley. And I worked 6 years for a company that was a turnkey systems for point of sale. And I became the only non-COBOL programmer in a COBOL shop.
Oh, COBOL, man.
And I did that for 6 years and then decided that Unix and C was the wave of the future. And sometime around 89-ish, I taught myself C by creating my first game where I worked 40 hours a week for the turnkey system company, commuting an hour a day each way. And I spent 20 hours a week doing my game to teach myself C, just to get a job in C because I thought it would be more fun than the COBOL.
That is awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
So for those who know, COBOL is a very it's a dated programming language, but like there are still like investment banking companies who rely on that, and they'll pay you like $250,000 a year to maintain their COBOL systems because it would cost them so much more to upgrade it to the modern time.
COBOL's interesting in that it was a language specifically created so that non-programmers could read it.
That is
and
awesome.
We kiddingly referred to it as the read-only language because nobody wanted to program it. So
that's funny.
Nobody wanted to write it. Yeah. Anyways, that first game that took me 4 years, sort of everything in the kitchen sink, and it was a puzzle game, and it was mainly just me modeling things I liked in the real world, like the I can't even remember, Mind Breaker. I can't remember what that's called. Code Breaker game. It had a Pipe Dream like game crossed with something else. Anyways, that game made me $80, but it got me 3 job offers. One of which was a tools guy in a games company.
Very cool.
So from 93 to about 2000, I was a tools guy in game companies. And one of those companies got bought out by AOL, so I got lucky. And from 2000 to 2003, I perfected my craft writing stupid little games that are available on my website that are mostly pencil and paper games transferred to Windows, kind of a thing.
Nice.
And that got me the job at iWin, which was in 2004. And that was my first job where I actually, a asset pipeline. I learned C++ for real as opposed to just a better C.
Right.
It was all data-driven design, and I got lucky. They let me do the whole, Mahjong game, basically. So.
Very cool. Yeah, they got to keep the profits on that one, but you got to keep the engine they used.
Correct.
So
and I spent 5 years doing that, and really, I just kicked myself for not leaving sooner. That's all.
Right. Okay. So. Makes sense.
Yep.
All right. So I got a question here from, let's see here, Lucky Ducky again. How do you manage your time as an indie dev? How do you manage your time?
You do something every day. Even on weekends, I usually work the first 2 or 3 hours when I'm up in the morning before I do stuff. But there's other times, like this last week, I really haven't coded at all for 3 or 4 days. And that actually, I like to code every day. I am truly a code monkey.
Right.
And I am having fun doing Unity, which is what I'm doing Unity full time now. So
very cool. So yeah, so for those who've been following along, Clutter up until 1 through 7 has been made in this one proprietary engine, and you're actually transitioning your next Clutter to Unity, right?
Correct, so that it can be on basically tablets and mobile as well as PC. Very cool.
So what can you tell us about that process of porting Clutter's engine to Unity?
I'm not really porting I am just porting features in a sense. And C# is so much better than C++, number one. And then Unity itself, over the last couple of years, I've been prepping for this by having local devs do some of my mini games.
Right.
And then I look at the code, and sometimes it drives me crazy or not. But I finally found this kid that was pretty good, and I decided he was good enough that he did my basic Clutter engine to prove feasibility. And I dove in there at the end because we had this problem with how do you recognize the click correctly on a piece that has alpha?
Right.
Because on mine, if it's alpha, it goes and clicks the guy behind it. So we had a lot of fun with that, but he helped me really get over my Unity hurdle while I mentored him on some I guess software engineering techniques and not rolling out code and refactoring, that kind of stuff.
Right. Very cool. So I guess, and I know we talked a bit about this offline, but when you're working with Unity and Unity's engine now, I'm sure you've already seen that some things are just way easier. Like for instance, when you select 2 objects and they cling together, I imagine that's a lot easier to do in Unity. And you mentioned you use a tween library. Can you talk about that?
Well, there's a couple things. So first of all, so I think some people know me. I do the rants each year at Siege. 10 people rant 5 minutes each for about the game business. And one of the things I made fun of is that kids nowadays, they don't know how to debug because you don't really debug in Unity. Right. And I'm half kidding, but the joke I did was I used to look through hours and hours of memory dumps and following stuff around. And even at the C++ stuff I did at iWin, there was some real debugging going on. But with Unity, something happens, and then you look around and you go, oh. And no matter how long it takes you to get to that, that 5 minutes it takes you to go, O is not debugging. O is just seeing what went wrong.
Right.
Big difference. So in Unity, one of the nice things is even something simple like being able to zoom in. So picture you have two starfish objects, right?
Right.
So the starfish has holes, and I want to prove that my algorithm that reverses a rotate and checks the original texture to see whether it landed on a pixel or not, as opposed to alpha 0, right?
Right.
It's so nice because I can actually zoom in and get at the pixel level, in a sense. Now, I might be 1 pixel off because of math, right? Because that's the way floating point can work. But you can tell that no, it works. It's correct. And that would be almost impossible to do without writing, special code. I can do things like, turn off all my foreground pieces to look at the background pieces to make sure that grid came out right. I mean, it's so much easier than doing that while the game's running as opposed to writing special code on my side to hide the foreground pieces for a minute and then go test, right? It's amazingly
simple.
It's easy.
Yeah, right.
Correct.
That's what's great about Unity, right? Is it's just so easy and it's so packed full of features. Like for instance, I don't know what code you had to write in C to get that conveyor belt system working, but there's literally a component now in the 2D engine that you can turn any hard surface into a conveyor belt.
I did not know about that. I will check
That's true.
that out.
In 2017.2, they released what's called a conveyor belt collider.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
It literally does all the work for you. It's so amazing.
I will have to check that out. What's interesting is my conveyor belt in the old system was slice oriented. Mm-hmm. And it was actually slices going down, and as they came off the other side, I put them back again to the other side. In this one, it's actually one long piece that just goes back and it wraps around itself.
Right.
And I decided I didn't need the slots anymore, so that actually when you click and things go down at the treadmill, they no longer sit in these slots. So it's cool. Interesting.
Very cool.
But that also is something. So before, when I test, I have this automatic hint, but in the old system, I can't overrun my slots or I'm in trouble. In Unity, since the slots aren't even there, I can just send 50 items at once to the. It's hard to explain. There's just so many things that are easier and to do. Just
very cool. All right,
and the garbage collection is one of them. Sure.
Yeah. Garbage collection by far is the greatest feature of C#, guys. You do not want to handle memory in your games. It gets very complex and it's prone to an insane amount of memory leaks when you're doing it yourself. So the fact that Microsoft is handling it for you, it is better than anything. I guarantee you, better than anything we could do on our own. So it's a really powerful system.
Yeah, in my old system, I actually had to write a guide that actually goes through all my levels, so I can prove I have no memory leaks, before awesome. I ship, in a sense. But of course, that took a few days to write.
Very cool.
Maybe a day for that one.
Right. Very cool. Yeah. I imagine as far as efficiency goes, you're going to be looking, quadruple. I think you estimated it's like 6-to-1 on the efficiency of using Unity versus your proprietary engine. Right,
at least writing the code wise.
Right.
There's still the thinking part. There's still the planning. Right. There's still, doing the levels. But and the levels, again, because of testing and other things, definitely go quicker. But they're not quite the same 6-to-1.
Very cool.
So I think overall your 4-to-1 is a pretty good.
Very cool. Yeah. No, that's awesome. All right, guys. So this we're gonna go ahead and take a quick minute break here. I just want to go ahead and say that these AMA series are sponsored by the Ultimate Guide to Game Development with Unity. It's a course co-created with Unity Technologies. They sponsor this. We're gonna go ahead and play a quick commercial for you, and I'll see you after that. I know some of you guys are talking about some shredding in the video, so I'm gonna go ahead and look at the bitrate settings as well. So I will see you guys in a moment. Hi, my name is Jonathan Weinberger, and I've been developing games with C# and Unity for the last 6 years. I've helped thousands of developers learn to code and improve their skill sets. I currently teach game development on Udemy, an online marketplace for courses. Udemy has over 17 million students learning everything from game development to piano or cooking. Enjoy courses on any device and at your own pace with lifetime access. My course, The Ultimate Guide to Game Development with Unity, is designed to teach you the fundamentals of C# programming in Unity. We'll cover everything from receiving user inputs to creating destructible objects. By the end of this course, you'll make 2 high-quality games you can share with the world. This course is for anyone who wants to learn game development or refine their technique. Whether you're interested in game development as a hobby or you want to make games professionally, this course will grow your programming skill set and help you go on to make your own games and applications. Click on the link in the bottom left of the video player to access a special discount for this course. I look forward to teaching you more about game development with Unity and C# on Udemy. Alrighty, so we are back, and Jacqueline asked an excellent question here. Will you have to give Unity a piece of your profits from using their engine?
And the answer is yes. Once you're going to make more than $100,000 a year, you have to pay Unity a monthly. What is it? $75 a month, Jonathan?
Yeah. So for the Pro model, it's $75 a month. For the Plus, it is $25 a month.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll be paying that. That's who cares?
Right.
I get it 4 times quicker.
Right, off of $2.5 million, you can afford $25 to $75 a month. It helps out the Unity ecosystem, and it keeps them developing amazing services for everyone else who isn't as fortunate to make the cap, but keep using these amazing free features of Unity.
Yep.
All right, so let's see here, guys. We've got a couple more questions in Discord here. Let me see here. Let's see. All right, so one of the big thing is, how do you promote your titles? You mentioned you use a bunch of distributors. Is that entirely how you do it, or do you do social media campaigning, like Facebook ads or anything like that?
So I sell
How do you market?
So I sell about $5,000 a year from my site.
Very cool.
And that's from building up my customers over time. And I cannot, because of distributor, I cannot, because they think of it as poaching or whatever, I cannot even have a link to my website in my games. So I strongly brand the Puzzles by Joe.
Right.
And that means anybody that comes to my website that has found me is probably already a big fan because they actually searched.
Very cool.
Okay. So I do very little. I've done some Facebook experiments. I've even given away something, and I've yet to prove that I can spend money and get it back. However, I do know that if I engage more with my Facebook page in general, I actually seem to make more. That
very cool.
Has an effect, but it's very difficult, and I really do. Again, my time matters, right? So. I did a talk a couple of years ago that talked about that my game is really a commodity. Each game, when I finish it, is going to make about 100,000.
Okay.
Over time. Now, at least. Okay. All that really matters, and that's like a can of coffee going down the treadmill. Okay. People will play it for a month and a half, 2 months, and they go, "When's the next game come?" They immediately go to that. And so I don't believe I've hit saturation, which means the sooner I can get that next game out and start making money, the better off I am. So this past year, I ended up getting 2 games out.
Right.
They were about 8 months spread apart, but one was at the beginning of the year. One was at the end of last year, but it's counted on this year, and then this one in September. And because of that, I had my best year ever by about 30%.
Very cool.
I'm hoping the Unity thing will let me get out a game in March, and then another one possibly 6 months later. And if I do that, I'm going to have another good year, right?
Right.
Not sure where I was going with this. What was the original question?
No, that was good. So here, Andrew has a question. What is some advice you can give to a solo indie developer regarding marketing their game, especially ones being published on Google Play? So you're not on the Android platform, is that right? You're purely
correct.
PC
I'm not
games?
correct. I'm purely PC and Mac. And again, I go through these distributors that already have the audience there. So what happens is I go, like now my games have a big enough audience on Big Fish that as soon as one goes out, it goes right to number 10.
Right.
And the reason it won't go any higher pretty much because they have 3 or 4 perennial games of their own that are these never-ending games. And then they have hidden object, what they call deluxe hidden object games that sell at twice the rate mine does. And because of that, even though I have this big fan base, I'll go and sit at 10. I'll be the #1 in brain teasers for a while, which is good. But I really can't expect to ever get higher than 10 on Big Fish. So I'm doing pretty much the best I can. But because I'm on there, I'm going to get, generate more than people that, don't make the top 10.
Right. So that's so there's a question regarding back to kind of like time management. So you mentioned that
Sure.
you will go days without programming.
I forced it was Christmas. I was pointless.
Okay.
I actually forced myself to do that because I had company and other stuff.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, even on a regular week, I like to, even Saturday and Sunday mornings, I usually code or do a little business for 2 or 3 hours.
Gotcha. So here's the biggest problem that many have in the indie game scene when making their own games is how basically what advice do you have for those who struggle to complete their projects?
Good. I actually read that in your pre-questions, and you make a list. I've always loved this little piece of advice. Make a list of everything you need in the game,
right?
Within reason, and then take the thing you can do the quickest and do it. And that at least gets the ball rolling in the day. And then and do the things you really not only quickest, but how to do. A lot of procrastination is because you don't quite know how to do it.
Right.
And let your subconscious sort of mull around something you don't know how to do, till you get it. And again, I'm just as bad procrastination. If I was the smartest guy in the world and didn't have procrastination issues at all, or old dog new tricks issue, I would have gone to Unity 2 or 3 years ago. But I was stupid. I would have quit iWin 2 years earlier.
Right. No,
I'd have twice as much
crazy.
money in the bank if I did.
Now, being able to have 7 games, does finishing the games get easier though? Like once you finish 1 or 2, does it get easier to always finish a game?
Yeah, in some sense. In some sense, so I'm a software engineer at heart. So even testing is something I've engineered. And even my own schedule, I've engineered, I engineer, I like to be an efficiency expert on my own life, so to speak. And that really translates, though, into more things in the game. Because, the first game just had a couple hundred puzzles, 200-300 tops.
Right.
And this last one went out with 875, I think, or 900. And Clutter 1000 is called Clutter 1000 for a reason. It's going to have 1,000 different games. And almost all those levels are replayable. And they're replayable at a difficulty of 1 versus 5, and there's testing that, that really becomes a problem once you start doing things like that. And cool. I figured out ways to help that a little bit too.
So one of the things which is really interesting, because you tackled a niche that you saw a void in versus someone who's just working on their passion project. What were there any? What can you tell us about demographics? So what are the demographics for your game, and then how do you find out what the demographic is for your game?
I won't say it's anecdotal because, first of all, enough people come to my site that it's truly women over 40. What we always said back during the boom, 2005, it's women over 40 with some disposable income.
Okay.
And that's who they are. Some people use it for pain management and meditation that seem to love my game. Why does anybody love? Most people treat the hidden object games, they treat them like movies. They download one, they play it for 2 to 4 hours, and they're done with it. My games are different because they're replayable and they're more this repetitive. Again, some people think they're stupid, that they don't understand it, right? They don't get the meditative value or whatever.
Right.
Plus, I give them so many options that certain people play it. They want that timer. They want to beat the timer all the time. There's other people that just turn that timer off and just play it to relax, and they don't care. And there is something soothing. I nod off when I test.
Right.
And I know from listening to my customers that that's not just me doing it. And I know people that have migraines that use it, that seems to help them, which seems like staring at a computer screen wouldn't be good for migraines, but I hear differently. Alzheimer's people, people that are bedridden, they just seem to love it because it's this activity that's very different. And really, that's we haven't brought that up, but it's truly the variations. It's not just that simple thing you saw. It's truly the mind-numbing variations, and that the next puzzle is always different than the puzzle before. So,
very cool, very cool. It's funny. I'm looking at YouTube went a little nuts when we played the Udemy YouTube ad, and looks like some people are upset, calling me a sellout. Look, guys, I'm partnered with Unity and Udemy, so I'm going to promote their products and their services, as well as the YouTube ad, and it's my curriculum, my course, I own the rights to it. Sure. So I'm not sure who's false flagging, but that's fine with me. It's okay. So let's see here. Looking at games released before Clutter. Okay, so interesting. So you know Clutter's niche really well, I imagine. Do you have competitors in this niche, and do you have any idea what their revenue scales are?
Yeah, so I'm very proud to announce that I have truly created a subgenre, because I believe there's two different developers. One tried it in, I think, only one game, but another one, I think they're based in the Ukraine, has put out like 4 different Clutter-based games. And they're all called different things and don't have a common name. And because of that, I think the highest one on Big Fish has made it to 50 or so. So they're not making too much money, and I don't think they have as many distributors as I do. Right. But they've been rushing them out. I mean, in the last year and a half, I've seen these, 4 games. And my customers all tell me I should be insulted and worried. But it turns out, like, at least on Big Fish, what happens is over half the reviews of their games, if they even get, 10 or 12 reviews, will mention my game, in comparison.
Right.
And some people seem to like their game more because it's got more beautifully hand-drawn stuff. But it's kind of a murky green, so some people complain about that. But most of them say that my game is so much better because of the variety and all the rest. But it's truly, they've definitely been influenced by my game. So flattery is the sincerest form of, or imitation's the sincerest form of flattery.
Right.
And I believe it bumps sales to me, so I don't care.
That's awesome.
And they're not doing as well. And if I had to start out today, I don't know if I could make this market work, because I built it up over time. And if I had done 7 different games, I'd be working for somebody else right now.
Very cool. So one of my favorite questions with everyone I ask on the show is, what is your take on the college degree? Did you need a college degree to get to where you are today? And do you have one?
I was a pure math major. I have a BS in mathematics from Rensselaer, right cool. Around a 3.0. It's respected out there. It's like being from Georgia Tech. It possibly got me some job offers or helped, but I don't think it was necessary. College is so expensive nowadays. I don't know what I would do. I think, it's great to be there with, other smart people, and you have the challenge. I'm glad that I was born before the PC computer, and that, I'm glad I didn't come across the computer when I was in high school, or that they had the tools. If I was in high school today, I'd never leave my room, okay? Because the tools are just too much fun, and they're awesome. I'd be, having a blast. And trust, I have so many game ideas that I haven't got to. I do the game jams once a year just to, cool. Have fun with that.
So you're participating in Global Game Jam? That's at the end of this month or next month?
Yep, for sure. And
Very
I don't know
cool.
I got like a list of 5 things depending on the topic. I'll pick one of them. I might do my own free cell. There's a game I've always wanted to do that's sort of like, have you seen the triangle game? I can't remember what it's called, but it's triangles and circles, and it's about the dynamic of neighborhoods and prejudice.
No, no,
You've
I have
seen
no,
that?
no, I haven't seen
Yeah, it's
that.
pretty cool. Anyways, I want to do. I have an idea for that crossed with like Osmos,
Right?
or which is about prejudice and how group numbers work to influence prejudice and stuff. But
Very cool.
don't know if I'll get to that either. So we'll see. I got to keep the money going. Just a couple more years. Sorry.
Very cool. I don't know what's going on with YouTube, but we're gonna hop over to Discord. I'm almost
Okay.
positive it's a bot, guys. Whatever that Google admin 0342 is, I really would not worry about it.
Okay.
It looks like there's some conversation going on about college isn't worth it. Not necessarily, or I'm sorry, it's not worth the money. Absolutely, don't spend $40,000 for the price of takeout. You can learn on things like Udemy or Lynda or digital tutors, and then you
Right,
have
but
YouTube.
but you
YouTube
do
is
learn
free.
more in college, based on your actual experiences and the people you hang out at and the
Sure,
challenges.
sure, and I think it comes down to too is you have to, if you're going to take the college route, you need to put the effort in yourself. You need to join those clubs. You need to create collaboration with your peers.
Right.
And it's all about what you put into it.
Yep. Yep.
So, all right. So, if there's any, we're almost approaching the end here. So, if there's any last minute questions in here, I'm just going to scroll through the Discord here, see if I missed any. Let me see here. So do you have any future projects coming up? When's your Unity Clutter coming out?
So Clutter 1000 is going to come out in end of March. In fact, I'm going to do an advertisement. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to give much away, but I'm very excited. I'm actually going to do a teaser trailer that will have no clutter in it, actually, but it has its purpose, and I'm going to do that soon. And I'm really shooting for the end of March. I want a tablet in my hand when I go around at GDC to talk some people about hopefully taking Clutter worldwide.
Oh, very cool.
The first two Clutters were in 4 other languages because Big Fish translated them. But after that, they stopped doing that, and then I stopped caring and baked a lot of text into art and stuff. And this next Clutter is actually going to be all icon-based, so no English text, no nothing. One of the first big screens they put together that's non-Clutter-like, that at least is sort of the story element without being a true story or anything.
Right.
It's going to be the word hello in like 100 different languages as a little puzzle, just to say hi to them. So.
Right. Very cool. So what are your plans for once you go mobile? Are you going to be integrating in-app purchases, or is it going to be a free game? How's it going to work? Are you going to just charge, like 99 cents or $3.99 for the game?
So I don't, again, mobile's a different thing. I'm definitely going to tablets first because of the space, but Clutter on a smaller phone, not sure it works. There's variations, but I will say something about free to play. And I don't know if the tablet will be, free and then so forth, but I have a model that I've always hated the free-to-play model, and my mini game things that may make it to standalone games on mobile someday, and maybe even this next coming year, a couple of them. What I want to do is what I call the Sudoku model. Sudoku was originally given away to all the papers in England to sell the books.
Very cool.
And what I want to do is I usually have 5 variations at least, interesting variations of a puzzle and 5 levels of difficulty. And what I will do is I'll let them play it, and they can pick whatever they want to play. But as soon as they get to 100 puzzles, I will pop up something and say, hey, $1 for 100 more, or $5 and you own infinite puzzles forever. Because that's one of the cores of Puzzles by Joe we haven't talked about, is my randomness and replayability.
Right.
So,
very cool.
And the variations. So, and I think the whale model of free to play is just reprehensible. So, I want to do an ethical version.
Okay, so here's a really great question. So Battle Drake in the Discord just asked, Joe mentioned working for companies with a skill set he didn't have. How did you land the jobs?
Well, I had close to the skill set, and some companies, so here's the deal. If you're really, really smart, you can talk a company into hiring you because you were a C programmer, even though you're going to have to work in Java.
Right.
And vice versa. And you can talk a company into, I became the math guy at a local gambling company when I've never done, gambling math before.
Oh, that's really
Because
interesting.
they were convinced I was a math major and I could figure it out.
Which is accurate. I worked in the casino space, so I worked with
Yep.
mathematicians to create these enormous pay tables, and then they went to school for mathematics, never thinking they would actually be developing like the math behind slot machines, but they ended up
And by the
learning.
way, I bypassed those tables by doing the Monte Carlo method because it's the only one I trusted, and I wanted my slots to be more organic
Very
and be
cool.
harder to predict.
Very cool. Yeah, well, today they're pretty hard. The
Yeah.
real strips are you're
Insane.
talking 33 to 130 per reel, 5 reel games. I mean, you're millions, 33 plus million combinations. So
Yep.
it's pretty advanced today. And a lot of the casino companies, if you guys don't know this, a lot of the casino companies use Unity because they're moving into the 3D space, and Unity is the easiest to just render 3D in. As far as animations go, so
Yep.
a lot of slot machine games that you'll see in like the casinos in Vegas or anywhere in the world, chances are they're running Unity.
Yep.
So, all right, guys. Well, that's gonna wrap up this stream. It looks like there's some trolls just in the chat. Thanks for tuning in, Joe. I really appreciate you being here. It means a lot. If you're interested in picking up Clutter or learning about the franchise effect, check out puzzlesbyjoe.com. He has a blog there that he will occasionally post, if that's correct, right?
Yeah, it's true,
Updates.
and the website's sort of under construction. So, but in about a month, it should be back to everything's findable, including I think I have 2 or 3 lecture videos that I've done over the years. So
Very cool. Very cool. Well, thanks for everyone for tuning in. Next week, we have a live AMA with an interface artist from Volition, Xavier. So I will see you guys next week, January 3rd at 7 p.m. See you guys.